My name is Olivia Carter, and I've spent 15 years assessing risk for one of the largest banks in Chicago. I've seen embezzlers, scammers, and corporate thieves, but nothing prepares you for the moment the risk lives inside your own bloodline. The text came just after sunrise. You owe me this for dealing with Mom all these years. I thought it was another guilt trip until I opened my banking app and saw the balance staring back at me. $0. My chest tightened as if someone had pressed pause on the air. The transfer log blinked like a siren. And there it was, authorized device, Travis's iPhone. My brother hadn't borrowed my money. He'd executed a clean sweep. $185,000 gone in one motion? Like a magician pulling a life out of a hat and keeping it. I whispered his name. Not out of shock, but recognition. Entitlement always leaves fingerprints. I called the bank. My voice steady but detached. Asking for confirmation. The representative said the transfer matched my linked account credentials and location data from a phone registered under Travis Carter. When she asked if I wanted to dispute the charge, I only said, "Not yet." I needed silence first, the kind that clears the fog before a storm. That money wasn't savings. It was Rachel's surgery fund. Every overtime hour I'd stacked to give my daughter a future without pain. Watching that zero glow on my screen, I understood something new about family. Sometimes love isn't lost all at once, it's itemized. Withdrawal by withdrawal. And as I stared at the empty account, I realized I wasn't the sister who kept forgiving. I was the risk manager who'd just found her next case. When I called my mother, her voice carried that familiar mix of exhaustion and pity. "Travis must have had a reason," she said, as if stealing 6 figures was just a misunderstanding. I told her he'd emptied the account meant for Rachel's surgery. And she sighed like I was the one making trouble. "You've always been so hard on him." "Olivia, he stayed to help me while you ran off to your career." The words hit with the same precision as a scalpel clean. Practiced. And meant to wound. I reminded her that I'd been sending money every month for years. That every so-called emergency had my name on the transfer line. She dismissed it with a gentle hum. The sound she used when she didn't want to be wrong. "He's your brother," she said. "He's struggling." I asked if struggling now meant wiring $185,000 through a gambling front. And she went silent. Then murmured, "You don't know what he's going through." I almost laughed. She'd raised us to believe empathy meant financial surrender. When I hung up, Rachel was standing in the doorway. Her expression steady. "Uncle Travis took it." "Didn't he?" she asked. No tremor. No shock. Just certainty. I nodded because denial had already cost us enough. "That money was for you," I said quietly. But she shook her head. "Then make him regret it," she whispered, the sentence landing like a verdict. Her calm was unnerving, but it matched the new stillness inside me. I sat at the kitchen table after she left. The room filled with the soft hum of the refrigerator and the echo of my mother's voice calling me ungrateful. It was strange how guilt could sound so much like love until you looked closely at the receipts. Every transaction told the same story. I had been buying peace in installments. And Travis had simply decided the final payment was due. That night I opened my work laptop. Not as a sister, but as a risk manager tracing an internal breach. The bank's system hummed to life. And the data spilled across the screen like a confession. I followed the trail of Travis's transfer through routing numbers and IP addresses until one name stopped me cold. Stonebridge Ventures LLC. I'd seen that entity before on a restricted list distributed by FinCEN. Flagged for laundering funds through online gambling networks. I whispered his name again. This time, without emotion. Only precision. "You just wired yourself into a federal case," I said to the empty room, pulling the report template from memory. I created a suspicious activity report, marking the transfer as potentially tied to a flagged entity. I typed fast. Not out of panic, but with the discipline of someone who knows procedure is its own weapon. When I hit submit, the bank's automated defense protocols triggered a hold on every linked account. I didn't stop there. I needed him to walk right into the trap. I sent a message that read, "I think I've been hacked. The bank froze everything. And I'm terrified." It was bait written in the language of weakness, the dialect he understood best. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. "What did you do?" he wrote, followed by a call that I ignored long enough for panic to ferment. When I finally answered, his voice was raw. "You need to fix this. Liv, tell the bank it was authorized." I forced my tone to shake. "I don't know what to say to them," I said, keeping my breathing shallow. "Please. Can you come over? Maybe you can help me figure it out." There was a pause heavy with calculation before he muttered, "I'm on my way." I stared at the message thread until the screen dimmed, the last text glowing like a warning flare. He thought he was coming to reclaim his stolen money. I was preparing to let the system reclaim him. By the time his truck appeared in the driveway, the hold request had already moved through the system. I kept my phone recording as I opened the front door, just enough to let him see the fear he expected. "You froze my account," he barked, his breath uneven. I stepped back, voice quiet but deliberate. "No, Travis." The Treasury did. His confusion cracked into rage as he shouted, "You think you're better than family?" I met his eyes and said, "Better? No. Just done being your funding source." "Oh." He shoved the bank notice toward me, waving the red letters like a weapon. The ATM said Federal Freeze. "You called the feds on your own brother." I let the silence hang before answering. "You called them on yourself when you moved stolen money through a flagged shell company." He blinked, pretending not to understand. "I don't even know what that means." I slid a printed document across the counter. The report header marked, "Suspicious Activity, Stonebridge, Ventures." "It means you didn't steal from me," I said evenly. "You committed wire fraud under federal law." He laughed, brittle and manic. "You think they'll arrest me over a family loan?" I pointed to the transaction trail still open on my laptop. "You used an offshore gambling intermediary already on a FinCEN watch list. You wired $185,000 through a network monitored for organized crime. They don't care about our last name. Only about numbers." His shoulders slumped for a fraction of a second before he spat. "You're lying." I tapped the screen, showing the timestamp that matched his phone location at Lucky River Casino. "This data doesn't lie." "You do. Today." Nicole appeared in the doorway, eyes darting between us. "Travis, what's going on?" He turned on her fast. "You told me it was safe." Her voice cracked. "You said it was just a transfer from your sister's business account." I looked at her and said, "That account doesn't exist. And now both of your names are on record." The room went quiet, except for the low hum of his phone vibrating with unread messages from the bank. I could see the panic bloom behind his defiance as he whispered, "What did you do?" I answered without raising my voice. "I did my job." He staggered back, realizing the scope too late. "You set me up," he said. I corrected him softly. "No. You set yourself up the moment you believed my silence was permanent." The line of disbelief on his face was almost pity. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I only felt the precision of consequence. The next morning, I told Travis we could settle everything quietly. He believed me because arrogance dulls suspicion faster than alcohol. "Meet me at my office," I said, the lie coated in calm. He showed up still, convinced I'd undo the freeze, wearing the same smirk he used when he borrowed money he never intended to return. "You finally came to your senses," he muttered as we walked toward the conference room. I only said, Something like that. No. Inside. The blinds were drawn. The air too sterile to feel casual. He didn't notice the Department of Treasury logo projected on the wall until the lights dimmed for the presentation. 2 compliance officers sat at the table reviewing case files. Their expressions unreadable. "What is this?" he whispered, glancing at me. And I answered. "It's the review meeting you requested." His jaw tightened. "You said we could fix it." I nodded. "We can. By telling the truth?" One of the officers slid a folder across the table. Inside was the printout of his transactions and a copy of the suspicious activity report. "This account," she said, "was connected to Stonebridge Ventures, a known laundering entity. You authorized the transfer?" He tried to laugh, but it came out broken. "It was just a family misunderstanding," he said quickly. I leaned back, keeping my voice steady. "You called it a misunderstanding when you drained $185,000 meant for a child's surgery." He turned to me, panic leaking into his words. "You said it was between us." I met his stare. "It stopped being between us the moment you crossed a federal line." Isnover. Nicole entered under escort from security, her eyes glassy. "Travis, I told them everything," she said, clutching her purse like a shield. "You said it was for a gambling debt." He shot up from his chair. "You lying," but she cut him off. "I kept the messages. You bragged about getting a free vacation out of your sister's account." The officers didn't move. They didn't have to. The evidence was breathing for them. I watched his shoulders collapse as the denial left his body. "You ruined me," he said, voice cracking under the weight of it. "No," I replied softly. "You ruined yourself when you decided family meant entitlement." They read him his rights with the efficiency of people who had done it too many times before. He turned to me one last time, eyes wet with disbelief. "You could have just let it go." I shook my head. "You could have just not taken it." As they led him away, the reflection of the Treasury seal glimmered on the glass wall. And for a fleeting second, I saw both of us, the sister he once trusted, and the woman who finally learned that loyalty without boundaries is just another form of debt. Travis was sentenced to 12 years for wire fraud and money laundering, though the headlines shortened it to "Family Dispute Leads to Federal Charges." I read the article once and closed it, letting the screen fade to black. Nicole took a plea deal and vanished from the narrative like a deleted sentence. My mother called once, her voice small, asking if there was any way to fix things. And I said only, "There's nothing left to fix." The line went quiet, and neither of us reached out again. The bank restored the funds after the investigation closed, and Rachel's surgery went ahead as scheduled. When she took her first steps without braces, she looked at me and said, "We're free now." I smiled because she was right in ways she didn't even understand. We moved to a small apartment near the lake in Evanston, where the mornings smelled clean and the noise of the city felt like distance instead of chaos. Sometimes I still catch myself checking account balances out of habit, expecting another breach that never comes. I keep every receipt from the last decade in a locked drawer. Not out of paranoia, but memory. Rachel once asked if I hated him, and I told her no. Hate is another kind of debt. The truth is quieter than anger. It sounds like peace reclaiming its space. I learned that silence isn't surrender, it's recovery. And when people ask what I do for a living, I still say risk management. But I think of it differently now. The hardest risk I ever managed was deciding that family doesn't get unlimited credit. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever learned the hard way that peace can't be bought, you'll understand why silence sometimes speaks louder than forgiveness. I hope it reminds you that boundaries are a form of love too. Stay strong, stay aware, and take care of yourself.